It's time to explore the world according to Glenn. I'm Kevin Jacobsen. Glenn Close is my favorite actress, and this show is all about exploring the career of one of the finest actors of her generation. Each episode, I'll be joined by a guest as we dive into one of Glenn's movies, TV shows, or stage productions, going chronologically through her career, discussing her performance, and assessing the project itself. And today, we are talking the cultural phenomenon that made Glenn Close a household name, a major turning point in her career, the 1987 erotic thriller Fatal Attraction.
Eight-time nominee Glenn Close, motherfuckers.
My guest today, I am always thrilled to discuss movies with, especially actress-led movies. He joined me on my other show, and the runner-up is to discuss the 1952 Best Actress race, as well as the iconic 2006 Best Actress lineup. All kinds of good stuff. Culture writer and critic. You can find many of his reviews on Variety, curator at Newfest and Doc NYC. Welcome to the show, Murtada Elfadl.
Kevin, thank you. Thank you for having me again. I'm so excited to talk to you about your favorite actress because you came on my podcast that I had for Kate Blanchett, I think more than once, right? We talked about a couple of
Yeah.
films. So I'm so excited to talk about Glenn because I feel like being your friend, I have thought more about Glenn than I would have thought about on my own. Just because
I hope that's
it's a compliment.
good.
It's a compliment.
Okay.
It's a good thing because through you, I sort of just
That's funny.
discovered or paid attention to more of her work or what she does well. So yes,
Wow.
yeah, it's a
I love
compliment for
that.
sure for both you and Glenn.
Yeah, there we go. That's really the purpose of all this, really, is to just convert more followers of Glenn
Yes,
into the
absolutely.
fold. Yes. But before we talk this huge, momentous event in her career, which is Fatal Attraction, tell me your relationship with Glenn Close overall, if you remember when you first saw her or took notice of her, and if you have a favorite performance from her.
I don't remember when I took notice from her, but I think when I started watching American films, she wasn't one of the people that I first noticed. Like I think from the actresses of the 80s, I was more into Deborah Winger and
Mm.
Meryl Streep. But I think it was the Meryl connection that sort of got me into Glenn because they're two blonde women of the same age, kind of, who were both stars at the same time and continue to be stars. And so there was always this thing of like Meryl and Glenn in entertainment, not sites at that time, there were magazines that I read. And especially in regards to the Oscar, as you know,
Mm.
Meryl being the one who keeps winning and Glenn is the one who hasn't won, which is a story that still continues to today, unfortunately for Glenn, although she seems to be doing
Yeah.
fine and doesn't care. So that's kind of my into her. And then I'm happy you asked me to do Fatal Attraction because that's the film. Like that's the sort
Oh.
of iconic cultural phenomenon that I think she was a respected actor before it and continued to be a respected actor for decades after it. But that's the one that sort of made her a culture. It was a cultural moment, and that sort of continues to resonate. How many years now? It's almost 40 years, right? That's crazy.
Almost 40 years. Yeah, 38
Yeah,
as of today. Yeah,
yeah.
I know. Crazy. But yeah, I'm so excited to. I think this may be the first time that I've had someone on who this film is their favorite performance of hers.
Yeah.
So,
I have to say one thing is when she started
mhm.
doing Damages, that was sort of like she was the first big movie star to do a TV series. And I think that was sort of like the turn, right?
Oh
Now
yeah.
everybody does it. So I remember that at the time being like this big thing. Glenn Close is on TV.
Right.
And
And it's not like a mini series, it's like a regular
yeah, it's
series.
like a
Yeah.
regular series. So
Mhm.
she's been sort of like she's had a few big cultural moments, and I think maybe Fatal Attraction and all the movies of the 80s and early 90s. She has a lot. She's has that was her like golden time. But then the whole Damages thing, she was like a pioneer. Not like a
Mhm.
pioneer, she was a pioneer for movie stars, and now everybody does it, and she was the first ever. So
Look at her go. I know. And now she's just in any kind of movie that she'll sign up for anything. She'll be in The Deliverance. She'll, you know, kick butt with Cameron Diaz and Jamie Foxx.
Oh
Like she'll do
wow,
whatever.
she's on Netflix. Okay. I haven't seen any of these movies. I do want to see The Deliverance because I do like his films.
Yeah.
So
Please tell me when you do, because
yes.
what she is doing in that movie is like very, very few actresses would be willing to do those things.
She's
Um,
fearless.
yeah, that is a great word for her, fearless. And I think it's a great way to kick off this discussion of Fatal Attraction. So, to discuss how Glenn was ultimately cast in Fatal Attraction, the film was first developed with James Dearden, who had created a British short film called Diversion in 1980, which tells the story of a family man who has an affair with a woman who grows very attached to him very quickly and refuses to be discarded from his life. So, the producers, Sherry Lansing and Stanley Jaffe, saw Diversion and believed that it could be a great feature film, so they optioned it. The director, Adrian Lyne, was just coming off Flashdance a few years prior, and he got attached soon after. So then, when it came to casting, I mean, you know, Glenn had her 3 Oscar nominations under her belt. She had an Emmy nomination. She had won a Tony recently, so she had pedigree, but you know, she also had a box office hit as well with Jagged Edge in 1985. But even with all of those things, she still really had to fight for this role because she was not considered a, you know, sexual kind of actress necessarily. So the producers had many other actresses in mind before Glenn, particularly Barbara Hershey and Isabel Adjani.
Really? Isabella
Yeah,
Adjani. Wow. Okay.
I know that would have been a very different movie. Miranda Richardson, many big. I mean, your fave Deborah Winger was among the group as
Mhm.
well of consideration. Jessica Lange, Susan Sarandon, Melanie Griffith, Judy Davis, Michelle Pfeiffer, kind of all the usual suspects that you would think of when it's like late 80s, you know,
Hmm.
this era. But Glenn really campaigned for herself. She presented herself in a sort of deliberately more evocative way and, you know, really teased out her hair more than is usually seen. She had this slinky black dress when she was auditioning. She wore a lot of makeup. And Sherry Lansing said that she presented herself completely differently, and right away she was into the part. So, yeah, really just blew them away in the audition. And it was largely because she saw a lot of potential in the character of Alex to make her more complex, even than what was on the page, and saw the story more from her perspective as a tragic one. So she was cast, and from there, she consulted with multiple psychiatrists to really dig into Alex's behavior and, you know, possible mental illnesses. She really, really poured her whole self into this, and obviously, a lot of that work really shows itself in the performance. So, to get into a summary of the film, Fatal Attraction is an erotic thriller about Dan Gallagher, played by Michael Douglas, a Manhattan attorney who has a wife and a young daughter. So one day he meets a book publisher named Alex Forrest, played by Glenn, at a party. They strike up a conversation and they continue to meet over the next few days, both at work and outside of work, and really hit it off. And they have an affair while Dan's wife and daughter are away. So from there, Dan hopes to just get back to his regular life, but Alex develops a very intense fixation on him and doesn't, you know, really feel right about him casting her aside and having his cake and eating it too. So she continues to show up in his life, at work, at his home. She continues to call him, and things just escalate further from there when she reveals that from their affair, she is now pregnant with his child. So, very juicy stuff going on here. Murtada, tell me your relationship with this iconic work from Glenn, how you feel the film also holds up today, because that's also a different discussion.
Yeah. Yes.
And yeah, wherever you want to
I
start.
think when I saw it the first time, I was maybe too young to get what was going on.
Sure.
So I think this movie probably started to make sense to me when I rewatched it whenever I don't remember when, but when I rewatched it as an adult. And then, started reading books about film. And I think the thing that resonated with me that I remember I read somewhere, I can't remember now, I'm sorry for whoever wrote this, that this came at the height of AIDS. And it was sort of a
Mm.
reaction. There was like several other films that came around in that time in the late 80s where it's about straight people, before Todd Haynes' Amazing Safe. These were sort of straight mainstream American films that were also sort of punishing their characters for having sex or saying that sex is now has become dangerous. And that reading of the film, the whole AIDS connection in the age of AIDS, it's you can't just go out and have sex and enjoy yourself and not deal with repercussions. Sort of as a gay man, it sort of like resonated with me. I'm like, oh, this is what this film is about. But also it's just a really well made film, really well acted. It's sort of like it talks a lot. I think when I saw it again this year, especially seeing it with eyes now after all that we've gone through in the last few years with Me Too and all of that, you sort of see it with a different lens. And this is the lens of like, oh, Alex is not really the evil person. Like she just doesn't want to be ignored. And that's her.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like
It's
her
just that.
right. Like so
Yeah.
and Michael
Mm.
Douglas' character is kind of an asshole.
Yep.
And so kind of I love the sort of thing that I think this is why the movie still resonates. It's that for every age, it has sort of a cultural touchstone that you can react to. I don't know that all of these things were intentional when the movie was made. Maybe men were afraid of having sex in the 80s, maybe, and that's why this movie was made. I don't know, but like, or straight men.
Mm.
But it sort of keeps resonating because it's the central sort of relationship of the love affair with this intense sexuality and then being jilted for it is an experience that I think just a lot of people go through, and it's an experience that people keep thinking about, obviously, in different ways, and that's why this film endures.
Yeah, that is an excellent point because also I feel like Fatal Attraction as a film, just stylistically, it seems very, very set in like late 80s. And
Yeah.
the look of it, the feel of it, some of the gender politics within it feel very set in time.
Hmm.
But to that point of what you're saying, there are definitely themes that you can pick up on with future generations and things that become more defined and maybe more obvious than it even was at the time.
Hmm.
What is the undercurrent of this?
Yeah. But even in the late 80s, I think this film resonated with women because as there were a lot of pictures I remember seeing at the Academy Awards that year where the film was nominated of women dressed up as Alex Forrest, the Glenn character, with the
Mm,
white dress that she wears in the sort of final few scenes of the film, is the blood dripping and holding knives. So I'm
mm.
sure it was a very popular Halloween costume in 1987.
Oh, yeah.
So I think even back then it resonated in that way with women, and women probably saw this. So Alex is a character that they identified with.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's obviously a huge moment, a huge turning point in Glenn's career where she basically cements her place in film history forever, I would say.
Absolutely.
And I think this performance and, you know, even this film, which does have its flaws, every time I watch it, I do feel like I get something new, especially in her performance. Like, there are so many ways that this could have gone very wrong, and they very easily could have made the character of Alex Forrest into just this crazy stalker, very one-dimensional villain, and Glenn very easily could have hammed it up as
Mhm.
she can do sometimes later on in her career, which I say lovingly as a fan. But
Yeah.
like, this could have been like cartoonish almost. But you can really feel the empathy and the understanding and the protectiveness that she has over Alex. Because like this story, like as it's presented to us, like she doesn't have anyone else protecting her or loving her.
Hmm.
So, in order to sort of find the humanity and the complexity of this woman and why she acts out in this way, you need someone who cares deeply about making her a three-dimensional person. And I think that is what Glenn does, you know? I'm sure for a lot of people, like, especially on their first watch, maybe the primary feeling would be like, whoa, this woman is crazy. She's a stalker. She's this and that, and, you know, all these things. But, like, the reason she makes such a lasting impression, I think, isn't just those things. It's that Glenn is bringing, like, a really shocking amount of vulnerability to the role and showing her to be, yes, dangerous, but also unstable to the point of feeling like this woman is not getting the help she needs.
Mm-hmm.
They probably don't have a proper diagnosis for her at this time, even of what she needs, in terms of like therapy wise.
Mm-hmm.
But there's just like a vividness in those moments where like we really linger on a close up of her face
Mm-hmm.
that shows, beneath the sort of archetype of the other woman or whatever, like there's a person here,
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you. I think this time when I watched it to talk to you, especially the setup scenes before, before she slashes her wrist, which is sort of like the turning point in the film when he's trying to leave her and then and she slashes her wrist and then you see the blood and all of that. All the scenes before that, when she is just they're meeting kind of cute, or her first introduction, which is just like they even comment like the character, she looks at a character and he comments back on her look, if looks could kill. And totally, like if looks could kill, she does that. And then the sort of
Yeah.
meeting with the Michael Douglas character and the sort of the adventure streak that this woman has of like, she takes him to a salsa club, which I think in 1987 was very exotic. Wow, this woman goes to salsa clubs. Uh, there is a lot of sort of like semi-racist things that I noticed in this movie. But anyway, like the made in
Yeah.
Taiwan and the Japanese guy, they were anyway, I don't want to get into that. Let's go back to Glenn.
Yeah.
So all of those setup scenes, like I felt for her. I'm like, oh, this is a woman falling in love. Like liked this man. She picked him up. She was sort of like, she put it in motion. She saw a man, she liked him. She decided to do something about it. She's not just somebody, she's not a damsel in distress. And
Right.
then I kept, I know how this film goes after that. So I kept wishing that somehow, miraculously, there is a new version out there where she doesn't boil the rabbit or get killed.
Sure.
Just because I
Well,
think of, just knowing Glenn,
yeah.
knowing this character now, I just saw this other part of her.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that first glimpse we get of her is so evocative,
Yeah.
in the at the party. Just like the graveness of her expression, I think is so striking when this other guy's like kind of trying to pick her up and
Yeah.
she's like, I have no interest in you at all. But then when she and Dan do banter, I mean it's very sexy, charming, flirting, all these things. Like she has this kind of casual swagger to her, I think. Even her little mocking line that she has at one point where she's like, is that your wife? Better run along.
Yeah. Yes.
It's yeah, just really I'm charmed by her in the beginning. I'll say that.
Totally. I think that's what I was trying to say too.
Yes.
And I also like the scene where they go and have dinner and she sort of lays her cards on the table. And basically, what I liked
Yep.
about that scene, and maybe you wanted to talk about it, but what I liked about the
Mm-hmm.
scene is that it's so frank. These are two people who frankly talk that that sex is on the table, that they both desire each other. And the Alex character, Glenn's character, is the one who sort of like takes charge in this. She's the one who holds all the cards. And he even admits that to her. He's like, it's up to you. I don't remember exactly what he says, but something in that manner. And I liked in that scene that she's not like, just willing to immediately give in. Like she is thinking about it. Like, what am I getting out of this? And sort of
Yeah.
like the script does allow her to do that all, but also I think it's just Glenn, in that scene, getting her cigarette lighted and the way that she plays with, and she looks directly at the camera as
Mm.
she's looking at the Douglas character. And like you can see, like it's very hard to play someone thinking, but Glenn does it well in that scene.
Oh yes. And that has been a thread so far, I find. Just even watching her from her early career is that something going on behind the eyes and you want to know more.
Yeah.
And I do love that scene, that kind of coded sort of dance that they have between the two of them, of the flirting and the innuendo and the way she asks if he's discreet, like very directly. I'm like, ooh, Like I feel it. And calling him a naughty boy for being out with her while his wife and kid are away.
Yeah.
And it's just the body language too is so striking. Just the sort of downturn of her head, and she's kind of like, and she's got that great mane of hair. Like it's such a great look that is, I find, kind of like equal parts seductive and like a little bit scary. But also it's like the scariness adds to the seductiveness in a way, the danger of it all, you know?
Yeah, like yeah, she is scary, I have to say. And when she calls him a boy, he does feel like a boy. And I think this is maybe that scene is also one of Douglas's best points because he gets the
Mm.
lead and he's billed first and all of that. But this is so Glenn's film and
Oh yeah.
that he's just an afterthought. But that's maybe one scene that he actually does play a naughty boy in that scene. Like when she says, you really feel it in him in the sort of sheepish way he looks at her and he reacts to her. I think that's probably his best scene because the rest of it is just he's reacting
Mm.
to what Alex is doing to
Yeah,
Dan.
this is true. Also, I believe Adrian Lyne directed Glenn to like play footsie with Michael Douglas
Oh, really?
during that scene, and he didn't know about it. So that's why you're seeing a little bit of that, like,
Yeah.
yeah, you're really kind of feeling the tension there.
Yes.
But also, I mean, they have a sex scene, which is relatively brief in the grand scheme of things of what's going on in this movie, but they're getting wet from the sink and they're doing it in the bed and they're going out dancing like you said and then doing it in the elevator of that
I
like
think it's
of
two
that great
sex scenes. There is a salsa
that's
break,
yeah
Kevin.
I would call no it's true no yeah sometimes you gotta take a break to go to the salsa club and go back and like I'm in the mood for it again.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Don't
that's a fair
shortchange
point.
Alex Forrest. You're trying to
I
ignore
know
her
okay
here.
yeah. Oh my God, I would never. I would never. Actually, that speaks to another point. This is a random tangent, but I wish Alex had more friends that she could just kind of hang out with and like talk
Yeah,
about these things. I just wish she had like a gal pal with her to be like, man, Dan, I swear this guy.
yeah.
I don't know who that
She's
would
so
be, but
lonely. You're right. We never see
yeah,
in her life. Yeah. I mean, it is
yeah,
written by a man
yeah,
who I think can't imagine what, that
sure.
part.
Yeah, fair point. Fair point. But yeah, I think that's a good sequence. I do think it's pretty hot, and especially how she really takes charge and kind of like ravishes him in the elevator, like just that out of control kind of energy. I think it's just very well captured in Adrian Lyne the way he kind of photographs that all. I really believe it, and I feel their chemistry. Honestly,
Yeah.
um,
I have to say, in these
yeah.
very chaste times, like the sex scenes are not long, but they are very hot. And, there is actions like, like you see her take down his underpants. You see them like
Hmm.
nothing is ignored. The clothes, how they sort of like get rid of their clothes, we're shown that.
Yeah.
How they maneuver and move around like it's very realistic and very hot. Like it's not just boom. It's short, but every move is accounted for. At least as
Oh
far
yeah.
as getting the clothes off.
Yes, and they're kind of like clumsily walking to the bed while he's
Yes.
still holding her.
Yeah.
Classic. Yes, but then of course when she's calling him the morning after because he's left, he's like a little disturbed maybe that she got his home number, but it's not quite a red flag yet, and she's inviting him over for lunch and he's kind of hemming and hawing about
Yeah.
like, oh, I have the dog with me. The way that she says, bring the dog, I love animals, I'm a great cook,
She's like,
always gets a laugh out of me.
I got all you need.
Hmm. Yes, considering what is to come with the bunny,
Yeah.
just the irony of that line is
Yeah.
always a good laugh for me.
Yes. Yeah. And then the elevator sex scene, I think, is also very hot because it's a very New York thing of like, they're in the meat packing. Like she's gritty, right? She doesn't live,
Oh
she lives
yeah.
in an apartment in the meat packing district. We literally see meat being packed.
Hmm.
And
Which feels intentional.
yes.
Yeah,
And
perhaps.
and then it's not like an elevator, like a regular elevator. It's a shaft elevator.
Right.
And so that also is visually very interesting. And I think what I loved about that scene in particular is like I think there is somebody walking. Maybe they will catch them and they stop the elevator. So there is a lot of sort of motifs about being caught, which is
Oh yeah.
which is of course, what he's afraid of and what maybe she wants. She definitely wants somebody to catch them, but it's also
Mm-hmm.
kind of what the film is about. So yes, there it's a sex scene, but I think as a sort of visual device to push the plot forward, I think it's really done very well.
Yeah. And I think it really plays a lot with the sex and the danger, and of course the sort of threat of death in terms of like when they hang out at the park at one point and he does this whole dramatic act of pretending to be dead, and just the sheer annoyance on her face that turns
Hmm.
from her, almost lashing out at him, and then her getting the upper hand by being like, "Oh, well, my father died of a heart attack,"
Yeah.
and kind of indicating that she was joking. To
Yeah.
me, this obviously shows her cleverness, but it's just like her need to just control the situation and like not wanting him to get one over on her or trick her in any way. So, for as kind of small and character building maybe as that scene is, I think it does inform how this will only intensify later on the need to control,
Yeah.
perhaps,
Yeah,
you know?
I think that scene people, or at least from what I understood reading some of the things about this movie, is that people took that scene that she's a psychopath. How could she like claim her dad died when her dad is alive? And I'm like, they're both psychopaths. He just pretended to be dead. Like they're both
Right.
psychopaths. They're playing a death game to the point that you were making.
Yeah, well, I mean, that just speaks to the whole double standard of how people take in this movie, and Dan versus Alex, and how people feel about their responsibility and all this.
Hmm.
So, yeah. I think also another scene that is a really stand out for her, of course, is when they're in bed, and he's essentially made it clear to her by this point that he is not willing to leave his wife for her, that this was just a brief fling. And in her mind, it's like, he's never stopped to even consider how she feels in any of this, and she is upset by his sort of callousness of wanting to have his cake and eat it too. And another great withering line reading that I love from her is when she says, "If you told me to fuck off, I'd have more respect for you."
She has so many amazing line readings in this movie.
Oh my god, just the bitterness there. And also the way she screams at him to get out at a certain point is quite frightening, I
Yeah.
find. And then after that, just going back to that softer tone as she goes to kiss him again, but then revealing that she's slashed her wrists. I mean, like, her emotions over the course of that scene are
Hmm.
so volatile and all over the place, but I think she really uses her voice there to such great effect, and the way that she really softens it, not to the point of it feeling childish necessarily, but like you can sense that deep insecurity, I think, when it comes to
Hmm.
relationships and her emotional state that doesn't, again, it doesn't feel two dimensional. Like a scene like this didn't have to be there in terms of like, yes, we get the shot of the wrist to
Hmm.
show how she is unstable, but like I feel like her vulnerability there is really, you kind of feel for her more than you do feel for Dan, which I mean, I never personally feel for Dan, but
Yeah.
the way the grand audience tends to side with him,
Yes.
just in terms of the
Because of the
casual
little
movie going
kid, the
audience.
cute little kid.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, I want to go to a point where you said she's frightening in this scene, and I think she is frightening. And if we go back, sort of like this, it reminded me of something. Is that to answer your very first question about what I think of Glenn? I
Mm,
I thought of her as a villain, and now it's reminded me that when I first started noticing Glenn, I thought she only played villains, or she was mostly the villain. But
yeah.
before Fatal Attraction, she actually played Goody Two Shoes, literal angels, like people who are so
Yes.
good, right? Like you've covered those films, so you know, like very good, honest people. And this is was the turn, but it was such a huge turn that then the perception of people who came up after Fatal Attraction is that she mainly plays villains. So she completely changed the conception of who she is, and I think it's also something she became hard for her to get rid of. Like she did what she needed to do, which is she no longer goody two shoes, but now she had this again a defining character that she continued to play for a while.
Yes, that is a very good point. And she really made active choices to not be seen as the angel or the Earth Mother that
Hmm.
she would play in those early years.
Yeah.
And Maybe she did it maybe a little too well that it's like, oh, now this is my role.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Because if
yeah,
you,
I don't
yeah,
know.
if you think of her other iconic roles like Cruella and Damages and all of the things that sort of like, I know you're not there yet, but all the things that come in the future, which is sort of like people's
Yeah.
perception of Glenn, the generation that came after those movies, like that's what we all perceive her to be, a
Yeah. And
villain
also, of
mainly.
course, yeah, and Dangerous Liaisons being the other
Yep,
big one as
exactly.
well.
Yes.
Yeah, very next year. Also, this is just a random tangent, but we talked. Amy Thomason and I talked on the Big Chill episode. We randomly had like a Fatal Attraction diversion, but just about the idea of, do we think this was Dan's first affair that he's ever had? Because I think I hadn't personally considered that
Mm.
until she brought it up. But like, there are certain times where I do feel a little bit like it's possible that he's done this in the past. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think this is just a one-time thing? Will he do it again? Probably not. But like,
He
did he do it in
probably,
the past?
yeah, he may not do it again, but I think the film wants us to think it's his first time cheating. Like this whole presentation, family man who just lost his mind for 2 nights or whatever it is. The
Yes.
film is actively trying to tell us this is the first time he's ever done this. But I'm
Yeah.
reminded of maybe a future version of Alex Forrest, Samantha from Sex and the City, and her very famous line where she says, "Men cheat because they can, and cheating is the proverbial." I think I can't remember exactly, but basically, if you're not found out, you haven't cheated. And
Mm,
that's sort of why
yeah.
Samantha cheats in Sex and the City. She had a lot of affairs with married men and whatever. But also like that reminded me that, he's probably just been never caught.
Yeah.
I think if he was a real
Worth
person,
worth thinking about.
we're thinking about it too much, but I think if it was a real person, he
Mm,
probably cheated. But I think the film is definitely asking us to
yeah.
think this is a one-off. And that's why
This is true.
she dies and he lives happily ever after.
Yes. This was just a brief lapse in judgment from
Exactly.
this honest family attorney. Yes. Yeah.
Uh,
I do want to also note this look of total despair that she has that has never left my mind when she is sitting on the floor
mhm,
of her apartment, turning the lamp on and
mhm.
off.
Yeah.
Such an evocative image, especially when it's like cross-cut with Dan just like going out bowling with his coworker and his
Yeah.
wife and having a grand old time. Meanwhile, she's just at home alone again,
Yeah.
just like, I have nothing else kind of thing.
Yeah, and that reminds me that that bit is, and many others of Glenn in this films are images that immediately I recognize as something I've seen many, many times, like the one you just talked about, the other one right before it when he's holding her in the bathroom of her apartment after he mended her slash wrists. That's an
Yeah.
iconic image, the one where, and I don't have any memory of Dan's scenes or Michael Douglas scenes. Like, if you tell me Michael Douglas, I
Yeah.
will remember him dancing in Basic Instinct in the club. Like that's
Sure.
or something like that. But if you tell me Glenn Close, I'm gonna remember Alex Forrest. Like that's it. That scene with the light, with she's turning the light on and off.
Hmm.
Like that's it's so iconic now. Like it's Glenn. It's such an iconic moment for her.
Absolutely. And I just think even in the cross-cutting there, like the fact that we're seeing that, I feel like the film is not necessarily as misogynistic or two-dimensional that some people accuse it of being, which I think, there are points within those arguments that I do think are fair, but like when we do linger on her in that way, I really do feel for her, and I think the film allows us into her perspective, at least in those moments,
Hmm.
even if it's not fully her story. And she just does such a phenomenal job of communicating her heartbreak and her loneliness, plus having the Madame Butterfly just at full blast in her apartment.
Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
who among us?
Yeah.
We've all been there.
I have to
you
say I
know,
haven't blasted Madame Butterfly, but maybe I should. It
it
looks,
doesn't have to be Madame
but
Butterfly. It could be
I know.
whatever, Yeah.
Whatever it is. Yes, we all have our songs. Yeah, but I was just thinking
Yes.
maybe I should blast Madame Butterfly. It sounded amazing in this movie.
I know. It really does. But of course, he rather coldly makes it clear to her that she is never to call his office again or even want any form of communication with her. And you just know from that point on, it's like this is only gonna make her dig her heels in more. And those feelings of hurt and anger of just being tossed aside. And it never fully clicked into place for me until this watch, just how much this probably does resonate, not only with women, but also with men as well, probably at the time. It's like this idea of men who are looking to move up in the world, and they think of themselves as honest men who occasionally maybe they slip up, but like are generally a good guy, and maybe justifies it even as being like, oh, what can I do? I'm a red-blooded American or whatever. But like this sort of thing that a lot of straight men will say about being kind of terrified about being accused of sexual misconduct, to your point earlier about the Me Too movement, and how that is like her presence is like the anchor for him in his life that's like weighing him down, and he will do whatever he can to just maintain the status quo of his life and his family and his job. I can just see that. I mean, like I knew before this in many of my my watches of this movie that it tapped into those real anxieties for people at the time.
Yeah.
But I feel like it kind of crystallized for me here the both of their perspectives, I guess, even though I'm much more on Alex's side.
Yes, definitely. I agree with you. I in this last watch, I really found that second part like I don't want to say tedious, but just a little bit less interesting. Especially any part when Glenn Close is not on screen, like Dan trying to maneuver himself out of this situation. Like I'm just okay. I'm just waiting for Glenn to come back.
Yeah, I mean, same, but to that point, I've seen it so many times that I am starting to see new things within it.
Yeah.
Um,
But the thing is, you're right. Like that's probably why this movie was a huge hit. That's probably why it ignited a lot of conversation, and it still does, right? Even if, after watching it several times, you're just like, those scenes feel like they're a little bit pedestrian compared especially I think the beginning is sparkling for both characters, like until she slashes her wrist, like it's perfect. It's like A Star Is Born. Until they sing Shallow, it's perfect.
It peaks in that moment. Yeah. Well, I think in this movie it peaks when she says she's not going to be ignored.
Yes, which is later. Which is later.
Which is later.
Yes.
There is that at least later on. But also, of course, the scene where she tells him she's pregnant, I think, is another knockout from her. And especially when he asks her who the father is.
Yeah.
And the way that he is like, well, how can you know for sure? And she's like, because I don't sleep around. Just the tone in her voice. Yeah. That slight smugness there. I love it.
Mm-hmm. If I had like sort of like a criticism about this film, it's how it handles this pregnancy, because I think I thought that she faked the pregnancy, because that would be more in tune with sort of this story where she is, this absolute villain, and he is the absolute victim. And I was watching, she says she's pregnant, and you're right, it's a big scene and all of that. And then it's only mentioned twice after that. Once when she goes and tells his wife that she wants their house, maybe, or their apartment because she's having a baby. And then when he tells his friend. And then the pregnancy is completely forgotten about. And this is why in my mind, all these years, I thought she was just lying. I forgot, the minutiae of the other scenes. But I was kind of taken aback here. I'm like, oh, it's a real pregnancy. So why is this sort of like not more of a thing in the rest of the film? Like she can just be discarded along with her kid, pregnant women usually are treated nicely in films, a little bit with a little bit more nuance than how Alex Forrest is being treated here.
I know. And especially when you think about how this movie ends, it's even more bleak.
Yes.
Thinking about that. You know what I mean?
Totally, yeah.
But I mean, that's another scene though too, where she is once again giving him some leeway and being like, I want this child. It doesn't have to be a problem. You play fair with me, I'll play fair with you. And that's all it is for her, is she just wants him to treat her with respect. Maybe she's clingy, maybe she is desperate for a relationship with him, and she has plenty of flaws herself, but it really does come down to that lack of respect, I think, and just common decency that really just nags at her.
Yeah.
So that always resonates with me, and why I think she is not a villain in the way that everyone will just easily assign her
Mm.
necessarily. And Glenn agrees. Glenn never felt that she was playing a villain,
Yeah.
which is important when you're playing this kind of character, is to not see yourself actively as a villain.
And I know you'll probably get to this, but she probably didn't read her as a villain because the ending was different in the script, right? We'll get to that later.
Yes, we will get to that. That is a very important piece of this story.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to drill down on that, I'm not going to be ignored,
Oh
Dan.
God, the
Scene.
best scene. I have said that to so many people on text and in real life over the years. You cannot imagine. It's one of the most iconic line deliveries. And it's because even at the words, like when you look at other iconic lines that people quote, like in all the gin joints in all the towns, wherever, like those are kind of a little bit poetic and they're
Mm-hmm.
like well written. And this is literally just a few words that has some stupid name in it, Dan, but it's still iconic.
Yeah. What am I supposed to do? You won't answer my calls. You change your number. I mean, I'm not going to be ignored, Dan.
Oh, the
Just the
way.
way that ignored,
So
there's a musicality to it that
yeah.
is beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, oof,
um,
Len, you did it, girl, was
yeah.
that line. You delivered it.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, when she says that, there's like a real, like, you can feel the history there, I think, with the character and how she maybe has felt ignored or alone for one
Hmm.
reason or another in her past. And obviously, the film doesn't really go into her background all that much, but
Yeah.
her expressions, her face, she is so locked in.
Hmm.
And I get chills every time I get to that scene, no matter how many times I see
Yeah.
it.
Tell me you've used that line, and I'm not the only psycho on this podcast.
I have used that line in
Okay.
text and in real
Oh,
life.
good.
And maybe I do change the name at the end.
Okay.
It's not always Dan. I'm not going to be ignored, Murtada.
Uh, I think I keep it Dan because I want people to know it's Glenn.
Fair enough. Well,
I know.
maybe I'm the psycho here.
Uh,
Um, anyway, love
I
that.
love it.
But yes, she kind of decides to ramp up her revenge from there. And I think so much of this in her mind is not just her lashing out at him or trying to get his attention, but it's like, I want to make you feel the pain that you have put me through and to make him feel what she feels. And she kind of even says as much on the cassette tape that she gives to him to listen to, and eventually starts, calling him every name in the book, every slur you can think of, and says, "Oh, you probably don't even like girls,"
Oh
which,
yeah.
things like that. Like, it feels like she's kind of trying to like soothe her own feelings
Yeah.
and sort of like demonize him to make the pain of him rejecting her maybe hurt a little
Yeah.
less. That thing you do sometimes in relationships of like demonizing the other person so
Hmm.
that you don't feel as bad in a way.
Do you miss tapes? It's just like, wow, cassette tapes.
Yeah,
And rotary phones and people wearing
I know.
business suits to parties after work. It seems so very 1987.
It really is. It can only be 1987. The look of, yeah, all
Yeah.
of the production design,
Yeah.
really. Yes. Even like the headphones and the sort of system that he has in the beginning while he's
Yeah.
working, all of that, very 80s.
Very, very
Um,
80s. Yeah. Her wardrobe is amazing. I don't know if we want to talk about that, but
oh my goodness.
yes.
Yes, I do. Of course.
But like, yeah, like her wardrobe is really amazing. I mean, I think you talked about the hair, and that was she adopted that to sort of like change the
Hmm.
perception of her. But her wardrobe is it's very 80s, but it's also very appropriate for this woman. And there's like, I love the difference between showing her at the beginning, she's very businesslike, she's in white. Then once she gets crazy between, quotations, she's wearing leather, black leather.
Uh-oh.
Um, and then, when she's just hanging around with Dan, she's more like bohemian and like flowing
Yeah.
skirts and then the iconic, of course, white dress that she gets murdered in, which is something that will remain forever. And is it the same, or was she wearing a t-shirt version? Because they kind of look the same in the scene where she slashes her wrists. It kind of looks like the dress, but it's more of a t-shirt. But I like that
Yeah.
even if it's a version of the dress that they made her wear kind of something similar because it sort of adds to why people keep remembering these amazing costumes that she wears as Alex
Yeah.
Forrest.
Yeah. I don't think it's the exact same, but there's definitely intention there
Hmm. Yeah.
of what it's trying to recall of that. Yeah. Really from there though, she really just it's like if you go low, I will go lower. And she does of course cross the line into hurting other people when she boils their bunny to
Oh
death.
God, wow.
That's also where he can't really justify the idea of like not going to the police
Yeah.
with this without telling the truth to Beth. So that leads to a difficult conversation there. But I mean, just curious if you had any thoughts on her escalating things to that point of killing an animal
Mm,
to make a point, you know, because she hadn't really hurt other people or creatures before
yeah.
this. This is
Um,
where it gets like, oh
I
no.
mean, this is the sort of point where you kind of feel that maybe Dan is right when he said to her, "You need help, maybe talk to a shrink," because he says that to her before.
Yeah,
Um,
that's true.
and then at that point, you're just like, "What? Shut up, Dan. She's just trying not to be ignored, or she's trying to
Yeah.
hold you responsible." But then once she does that, you're like, "Oh no, she does need help," because it's not like it's not a behavior that people do. But also, like, I think the bunny is now become a cultural thing. Like, there's so many references to the,
The
boiling,
bunny
bunny
boiler.
boiler,
Yes.
exactly, in films, from like Four Weddings to other films, to a lot of like that's become in the lexicon. And I think it was, like it's one of the reasons the film sort of everybody was afraid of their animal being boiled. Don't have sex or your rabbit will be boiled.
That is the takeaway. Yep. I just even though it does seem like oh this kind of is escalating very quickly, yeah it always does hit in the way that it's cross cut there. Like there's a lot of great cross cutting in this
Yeah,
film.
yeah,
I
yeah.
I
The
really
editing is
noticed that.
amazing in that scene because they keep cross-cutting to
Yes.
three things, right? There is Ellen, the kid, running to the bunny house,
Yep.
and the wife, can't remember her name now, Beth, coming to the kitchen while the rabbit is boiling, and then suddenly there's a third thing there, which is Michael Douglas appears, and you're like, oh, where is he? And he's in the middle of
Mm-hmm.
those two. He keeps hearing both his wife and daughter. It's really the editing is superb.
Absolutely. So yes, from there, like it's interesting also. This goes more to my wild theory that I'm like, maybe there's something to this. When Ann Archer in her performance, the way that she asked him, like, what is it? Did you have an affair with her? And it's not like, oh my god, shock, how could this happen? This has never happened before. Like
Yeah.
it's like this almost resigned feeling of like you had an affair with her, didn't you?
Mm.
Or I don't know. Like I don't know what it is. There's something to that where I'm just like I'm thinking a little bit of like what their past is in that
Mm.
way. Or maybe she's just aware of the fact that like this is 1987 Michael Douglas and he's so handsome and charming or whatever and can get any woman he wants and it's like of course there's always a danger of that. I don't
Yeah.
know. Either it did
Uh,
get me thinking again.
I interpreted it differently. I thought
Okay.
that she said that as yes, it's like it could be one of the more logical reasons for this happening because she saw them together
Yeah.
in the previous scene where Alex comes and visit them and she probably saw something and she dismissed it. But I think she was
Mm.
fully expecting the answer to be no. Like
Mm.
she says
Okay.
that, but I think she was fully expecting the answer to be no. Because then her reaction after is like, oh
That's
my God,
interesting.
my worst fear is actually true. Or whatever, what this snippet of a thought that I didn't even think about is the truth.
Mm. Yeah, that makes sense too. I could see that. That seems like probably the answer, the right answer
I mean, there's
in the
no right
end.
answer,
But
right? That's what's fun
yeah,
about talking
I
about the
did. Well,
film. Yeah.
I guess I should say how they interpreted it as they
Yeah.
were filming it.
Yeah.
Perhaps I don't know, but it is interesting that she reacts way more strongly when he tells her that Alex is pregnant.
Yep.
You know, that's where it really blows up. Like this is beyond the pale, and she kicks him out of the house, and I think rightfully so.
Yes.
So yes, it just kind of escalates further from there when Alex picks up the daughter from school, kidnaps her, which is also perhaps morally questionable to say the least. But you can maybe see in a very strange way what would motivate her to do something like
Right. I
that.
mean,
Not only to like,
yeah,
do
finish,
you have an
finish, finish, finish.
interpretation?
No, 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 finish, finish. Sorry to
Okay,
interrupt.
okay.
Yeah.
Yes, just like the idea of showing her control and her power and that she isn't someone to be fucked with or whatever. But also it's like, maybe there's something to the idea of like, I'm going to establish a relationship with your daughter, and maybe the daughter will want to be a part of her life in that. Like, she's trying to worm her way in a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the only way she really knows how, because she's kind of desperate at this point.
And also, the daughter will be her baby's sister or half sister. And I think this is another point where
true.
I never thought of this before in my many watches of this film, but I thought about it this time. Like, oh, that's what she's doing, because this is the time watching this film where I'm like, oh, she's pregnant. Like, there is a baby that she's thinking of. Like, Alex is thinking about the baby. So if she's thinking about the baby, she's probably thinking, oh, this is his sister or half sister. And that's why she does that. But she does take her on that dangerous ride, man. Like that. That is when
I was gonna say, is she fully thinking about the baby in that moment? Because like, that is a very intense roller coaster that they go on.
Oh, but that's also like the schlockiness. There's a little schlockiness to this script and to this film, and that's when they just want to up the sort of like, oh, this is a crazy woman. Like, look, she kidnapped her, took her on a dangerous ride. Yeah, but yes, it is what happens.
And that of course leads to some collateral damage when Beth goes searching for her and gets in an accident, and then all this just puts Dan over the edge, and that's where her and Dan really go to blows, and he tries to strangle her and she tries to stab him with a kitchen knife, and there is this very like operatic feeling, I find, of also sadness that she communicates in that scene, especially when he gets the knife from her and puts it down and like goes to walk away, and we just linger on her expression. That's another scene that I always think of, that image of her just kind of standing there vulnerably.
Yeah, that scene is it's a little too much, but I guess it's also just setting it, like, because it's suddenly, remember, we started with these people flirting and like in a little cozy party, and now I don't know how many weeks later they're trying to murder each other. So things have really taken a turn.
A lot has happened, to be fair.
Yes.
But still.
Yeah, but it's also like sets up the finale, right? Like,
yes, very much so. And I also think to the point of the ending, the way that we linger on the knife in that moment at the sort of button of that scene, it really does set up the original ending really well of what it was going to be, with Alex slicing her own throat and pinning it on Dan. Yeah. Just saying. It makes sense.
It makes sense, yes. So the original ending in the script that everybody read was she kills herself, basically, right?
Yep. She uses the kitchen knife to very slowly slash her throat. And he has the fingerprints, so he is charged with that. And so it's essentially framing him for murder. Wow. And he's taken away by the cops. But then the wife, Beth, finds this cassette tape that Alex had made for Dan where she threatened to kill herself, which kind of Beth will presumably use to exonerate Dan. And then the very last scene, the last shot of the film, is Alex on the floor again, sitting there, total despair, and she slices her throat as the Madame Butterfly music is playing in the background. A very operatic ending and very poetic.
Oh, God. I want to see that ending. Is it available anywhere?
Yeah, it's on YouTube.
Oh,
you can
really?
Watch it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, Kevin, I think we're done here. I'm going to watch it.
Oh, no. Yes. Well, if anyone hasn't seen it, pause the episode now and go watch. It's about 7 minutes, but really a haunting conclusion, especially the expression on her face, and it fades to black. It's like, oof. Like, that is a dark, dark ending, but very effective.
Yes, it's probably much better.
But that's not the ending we got.
No, that's not the ending we got.
Because it's 1987.
Yes.
You know what I mean? But should we talk about this ending and whether we think it holds up?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yes. Well, to, again, kind of give further context of this, they shot the original ending. They presented it to test audiences, and people apparently hated that Alex was not really sufficiently punished necessarily, and they wanted a more grisly, ending for her. And Glenn really, really pushed back on that of having to shoot a different ending, and especially with how it plays out for her character. And she fought the studio for 2 weeks before she finally was just worn down by the end and agreed to do it. Essentially, what happens is Alex goes to their country home and confronts Beth in their bathroom and is really asserting herself as the one Dan really wants. And she's also, in an interesting way, she's kind of like stabbing a little bit at her own dress with the knife as she's walking to her, which is frightening, but it's also
Yeah.
like it speaks to a little bit of maybe her self-harm
Yeah.
tendencies as
Yeah.
well,
She has
you know?
slashed her wrists just a couple of months ago,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
right, right. But of course, she does attack Beth, which I sort of understand, but I also feel like it's a little cheap at the same time.
Hmm.
Not entirely within the character of what Alex would maybe do, maybe outside of her boiling the bunny, I guess. But I don't know if I see her as someone who actively wants to hurt other people necessarily.
Mm. Yeah. I don't know, Kevin. She did boil the rabbit. I
I
mean,
know, I
I
know.
mean,
It's
I
it's
mean, I'm the film has set her up well to get to this point. Like the script has given us
yeah,
enough indication. She slashed her wrist,
yeah.
she boiled a rabbit, she kidnapped the kid. Like it's not like it's this is not something that the film has sprang to us in this last scene, but it has something they have been setting up and building towards for both endings actually, where she kills herself or whether
That's true.
she yeah. So from it, like just from like a script point of view, like it's been indicated that this character could do this.
I think by that point, of course, they're fighting, and Dan once again goes and strangles her in the bathtub. We think she's dead, but then she emerges like a horror movie villain at the end of the movie, and Beth shoots her.
Yeah.
Beth is the one who shoots her, which is a very intentional point because that's another thing Adrian Lyne has talked about is the idea that Beth is really the only innocent person within all
Mm.
of this.
Yeah.
And that felt right for the audience to be like, okay, good has triumphed over evil
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
nuclear family is preserved.
Yeah, and it also plays to the fact that the film actively wants us or to see Dan as the victim in the two of them. And so him
Yeah.
killing her would not have really been in tune with that. So getting the innocent person to do that, yeah. And I think, maybe the other ending, I don't know, but this ending also works. Like it works, and it maybe worked in 1987. Like you get a shock.
Certainly.
Like they didn't they changed a very shocking ending with another shocking
Mm-hmm.
ending. I think they didn't just give up and resolve this film paddily or whatever. Everybody's happy and nice or whatever. Like they have set up so many things that this was gonna have to end up with somebody dead or
Mm.
murdered, and they just change. It's the same dead person, but they just change who actually commits the last act. So they kept their nerves.
Yeah, yeah. And I do think just looking at it as a scene, even the way it's directed, is really pretty incredible. And you would
Hmm.
probably never think that this was like suddenly a tacked on ending by any means.
No.
Like, especially the way it's staged, like her suddenly appearing in the mirror and just more great intercutting of the
Hmm.
fight going on upstairs, Dan downstairs, and the tea kettle boiling over here. Just the tension of Alex slowly approaching Beth with the knife. Yeah, it's great. It's great, like horror thriller directing, and I can see why audiences in 1987 were probably going wild in the theater over that final sequence. You know?
Yeah, yeah. It's an amazing ending. Like to your point, it's very well shot and edited, and it's kind of why you feel you leave the film disturbed, and it's probably why a lot of people, left and started talking about the film. I liked also like I thought it just ended there, but I realized that there is like sort of a coda
Mm-hmm.
that comes after, and I think I thought the code almost like, is this necessary? Because I didn't remember it before, but I think it is necessary because it's such a this ending was Beth killing Alex is so like huge and awful, and you need a little bit of time to sort of like just out of the story before you like leave your
Yeah.
seat or close the TV or whatever. It continue with your life.
Mm-hmm. And just that lingering shot we have of the picture frame
Mhm.
of the family. Uh, it is kind of like, yes, the family has been restored, but it's also like this family will probably never be the same after this incident.
Yeah.
And we wonder where things would go with this family from here, I suppose. But yeah, I think I would also just want to kind of conclude this part with talking about Glenn's own feelings
Hmm.
about this movie, which she's
Yes.
talked about many, many times over the years, as you can imagine, and has actually made her feelings known pretty plainly about how she feels like the film didn't quite get the ending right for Alex necessarily,
Mm,
and that she's
mm,
of two minds about how she feels like the ending, just kind of taken as it is, great for box office, like it's a very effective ending in
hmm
its own way, but for her personally, as someone who really found an attachment to Alex, she felt like the original ending was more potent, I guess, in that way. She has a really interesting interview with The Guardian where she talks about how she just wishes that there was more context given to Alex and her story. So she said there's no way for the audience to know what her past was. It's only hinted at when she looks at him giving the bunny to his daughter and then throws up in the bushes. Nobody would say, well, why did that happen? Whereas I asked that, and the psychiatrist said if she was molested at an early age and what she was made to do made her gag and throw up, then that's her trigger.
mm.
So a lot she is thinking about with this character in terms of Alex's past that I feel like isn't fully explored in a way that some people have interpreted as a little bit clumsy or dangerous in terms of the depiction of mental health and, mental illness.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, she's obviously thought about this character a lot, right?
Oh, yes.
But this seems like even at that time, she thought that this was not the right ending. So she, like we just did, she appreciated that it was well done.
Yeah. She's always recognized that this really changed her life and it was an incredible turning point for her career and all of these different things and kind of made her a movie star fully by this point. But
Hmm.
at the same time, she does still feel like they didn't quite get it right in the end. But, I still get a lot from her performance even within that. I can sort of fill in the gaps of who Alex is, even if I don't fully explore it within the film. But
And it's the performance, like she's the one who fills in those
yes,
blanks that the
of
script
course.
doesn't give us. Yeah.
Do you have any other stray observations, not necessarily about Glenn? Do you want to talk about Anne Archer at all? Like, she got a supporting actress nomination, so she.
I mean, the performance, like she's good, but I don't know. I wouldn't nominate that performance, frankly. I think she got the nomination because she kills the Alex character, or Beth kills Alex, right?
Yeah, yep.
And sometimes you just get swept in when the film is a hit, and this definitely was a hit, and a hit was the Academy too.
Yes, this is true. Yeah, did you have any other random thoughts, or do you want to transition?
No, I just want to say like it was actually great to watch it again and to see it in a different
Hmm.
way.
Yeah.
And it is, in my opinion, it was my opinion before I saw it again, and it remains. I think it's my favorite performance of hers and most iconic, and the
Hmm.
one that remains a cultural phenomenon, and that's very hard to have. Like very few people have that. And sometimes, like, when I started this conversation by saying, like, I always sort of Meryl and Glenn together and whatever. Glenn had this in 1987, and Meryl had won the Oscars and was by all whatever means, she's thought of as more successful than Glenn. But the fact is that Meryl didn't have a film like A Fatal Attraction until The Devil Wears Prada, a full
Mm.
18 years after Fatal Attraction.
Yeah. Good point.
So yeah, these roles, these movies are very hard to come by in people's careers. And Glenn had it pretty early in her career, so that's great for her.
Yeah, this was only 5 years after her film debut,
Hmm.
so
Yes.
yeah, she really struck gold at the prime of her career. Just one other note I wanted to mention, just a random fact that I always like, is that Glenn was actually pregnant with her first and only child, Annie Stark, when she was filming the reshoots of this movie.
Oh, the young
So I
wife.
feel like, yeah, yes, exactly. Annie Stark would later play the young wife in The Wife. Um, but Yeah, I just think it's interesting, especially with the resonance of Alex being pregnant,
Yeah, yes.
perhaps pregnant. And yeah, so just worth noting. So let's get to the release of Fatal Attraction, which was huge. September 18th, 1987, perfect fall movie viewing, great release date, and it became a pop culture phenomenon. It was the number one movie on its opening weekend, and it was a huge word of mouth hit. And ultimately, it became the second highest grossing movie of 1987, behind Three Men and a Baby.
Oh,
So
wow. Let's go.
yeah. So, and it remains one of her highest grossing films to date, especially when you adjust for inflation. I actually looked this up, and if it came out today, this movie would have made $450 million domestic.
Oh my God. Really? Wow.
Yes. Yeah. So in 1987, it was 156 million. But yeah, by far her biggest hit as a leading actress. So yeah, it was a major release that year. It was the subject of a lot of discourse. There were debates about its messaging. There were some feminists who pushed back of like what they felt like were sexist overtones in the film, and there was also a kind of meme culture before memes with the bunny boiler stuff, like you
Yeah.
said, and her character, her iconography being so instantly kind of, it just popped really. And it became like Alex Forrest became a reference point of like when you're referring to someone as a stalker,
Oh, yeah.
being like, oh, be careful, she might go full Fatal Attraction on you, like that sort of thing.
Yes. Yeah.
But I guess I would curious to know why the film had this kind of cultural impact, why it was such a runaway success with audiences.
I mean, I think we already kind of said that, but it's just because it's about things, it's about a situation that almost everyone can see themselves in, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Like
Yep.
it's temptation, sex, all of that. When you cheat, you're afraid of being found out, and this is about being caught. And what the repercussions will be. And so I think that's why it resonated with people and it became this talking point. And, and let's not forget all these things that we talked about, like the bunny boiling, the don't be ignored, Dan, like it had so much things that made talking about it, I assume at that point, like a great conversation. But the reason is it's a situation that people can see themselves in. That's the main point. And
Yep.
then the film amped that up with this. I mean, it's a very good script. Yeah, they did not write Alex as well or whatever. There you have misgivings here and there. We talked about it, but it's a script that plays really well and with an ending that people are going to talk about. And you need to have an ending that you need to land the ending, and this film does it.
Yeah. I think there was definitely just an appetite for all of the themes that it covers and everything you said, and just the idea of the nuclear family and sexual politics and even women in the workforce. There's some element to it of that.
Yeah.
I also don't know if there was like something quite like this movie in the lead up to it that felt like it combined all of those different things into something that was this thrilling, this entertaining, with great performances too.
Yeah.
So there was like a danger and an excitement that really kind of appealed to people.
Yeah. I mean, there were a lot of movies about sex
Yeah,
in the
obviously.
80s. Like I was on our Friends from the Film Stage podcast about Deborah Winger, and she had a film, I don't know before or after, called Betrayal, but it's not a very good film. But it's about a woman an FBI agent who goes inside undercover and has a relationship with this neo-Nazi person. And it's also about who she becomes really attracted to and maybe even in love with. And so it is about sort of like how dangerous sex can be. I can't remember, there must have been other films because I think why this film sort of was a huge hit at the time is that it was the one that did it well. What a lot of
Yeah.
other films and filmmakers were trying to do, I'm assuming, people who were working then, I can't remember. I don't know. Ken Russell was probably doing something in 87. I don't know.
Certainly. Yeah. Fair point.
So it's the one that did it and did it in a way that it attracted a huge audience, in a mainstream way that attracted a huge audience and made it just
Yeah.
available everywhere and is still available everywhere.
Yeah, that's what I think I'm saying is that there was an appetite for just this kind of movie because there was a culture within it, but
Hmm.
the way that this kind of combined all these different talking points even about the culture, I think it was just done so well that it was a word of mouth hit. So anyway, when it came to awards, a movie like Fatal Attraction that's perhaps, a little trashy feeling at times, and these kinds of thrillers, erotic thrillers, don't usually do super well at the Oscars, but it was such a sensation that it really couldn't be ignored.
Yeah. I mean,
So,
it was one of the things that I was surprised at. Like when I became an Oscarologist, I thought blah blah, is that a right word? Whatever that word is. Like, when I started
I like it.
following the
Yeah.
Oscars really seriously. And you look back at what was nominated. That was one of the films I'm like, oh, like, in my mind I knew Glenn was nominated or whatever, all of that stuff. But I'm like, oh, this was nominated for Best Picture, really? Like it's not, to your
Right.
point, it's atypical of a Best Picture
Mm-hmm.
nominee.
Yeah. It did pretty well in the precursors leading up to the Oscars, even. Like, it was a top 10 film of the year with the National Board of Review. Adrian Lyne was the DGA nominee. Screenplay, WGA, got 4 Golden Globe nominations. And then, yeah, at the Oscars, it did very well. Best Picture, Best Actress for Glenn, which was a huge moment. Her first Best Actress nomination and her 4th overall. Supporting Actress for Anne Archer, Director, Adapted Screenplay, and Film Editing. It didn't win any of those, but still, this was by far the biggest film that Glenn had been a part of by this point in her career.
Mm.
So, yeah, I mean, any thoughts on why you think voters were like, we have to nominate this,
I
even
think
if it's not
yeah,
typically our kind of movie?
it's because
Is
it
it
was
just
so,
popularity?
the Academy does nominate popular films that sort of have a sheen of quality, but are also made a lot of money.
Yeah.
And that is something they still keep doing, and they have been doing. So that's probably why. I mean, I don't know what the other 5 were. Was this the year of the Bertolucci movie?
Yes, The Last Emperor was the big sweeper.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Moonstruck,
Which was also a
Broadcast
hit.
News,
Yeah.
yeah, and Hope and Glory.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, 3 Best Actor, Best Actress nominees in Best
yes.
Film. Excellent. We
Yes,
love
indeed.
it.
I know. Yes, yes, we do. Very rare, but there it is. Yes. I think, honestly, this is not just me being a stan, but I think a big part of it is the involvement of Glenn, who was a 3-time nominee already, very respected actress at this time. And I just think she really maybe elevated this a little bit in maybe Academy voters' minds
Mm,
just through her performance and the force that she brought to it
hmm.
and the respect that she carried
Yeah,
as an actress at that time.
totally. I agree. But also Michael Douglas had a brilliant year that year. That was the year he won for Wall
Yeah,
Street. So he had two
right.
two big
No,
movies.
that's
So
true.
so it's I think it's a combination of both of them. Like they were both kind of arriving at movie stardom. And so, I know we're going to talk about like Best Actress, but that's also a third person arriving at stardom who actually won was Cher. And that's probably why Glenn lost. I'm sorry, I'm like going
Yeah.
ahead.
It's okay. It's okay. I think also, like we were kind of saying, just whenever there's a big cultural moment, like Black Panther a few years ago, or like Ghost a few years after this, or going back to something like Love Story in 1970, like these are movies that maybe wouldn't seem like Academy fare necessarily, but they just became these movies that people really resonated with, and they were organic hits as opposed to like predetermined, oh, this is a historical drama, so it's going to get nominated for Oscars.
Yeah.
So would love to get more of your take on this Best Actress race. If you have other thoughts, I obviously covered this on And the Runner Up Is.
Mm.
I said on there that I would have given Glenn my win, obviously, but we have a lot of heavy hitters here. We have Cher and Moonstruck. We have Holly Hunter in Broadcast News.
Sally Kirkland and Meryl.
Sally Kirkland
And
in Anna, and Meryl Streep in Ironweed, which
oh,
is not one of her most remembered films.
yeah. I'm very happy that I remembered those 5 without even looking it up. It is one
Yeah.
of the, Ironweed, whatever. I think it's the weakest of these 5. But it is a
Yes.
very strong year because of the Broadcast News, Moonstruck, and Fatal Attraction, of course. And it is all about timing. And let's not forget the Oscars is absolutely a popularity contest. And the reason Cher won is because Cher was having an amazing, huge year in 1987. She had three movies, she had an album, she was on the cover of all the magazines, and she also was changing the perception about her from being this sort of a fluffy singer who's behind Sonny or things, or does what Sonny tells her to do or whatever, to being this star of her own, owning the moment with Moonstrucks, which, like Glenn, she played against type. She went the opposite way. She's always a glamorous person. She was sort of like very unglamorous and then has the makeover. And I think Cher won. It's a very good performance. I love Moonstruck. I probably prefer Moonstruck to Fatal Attraction just because it's a nicer, cozier film that you can put on and sort of like
Yes,
enjoy more.
definitely true.
And I think it's also just generally a better made film and a better script than
Yeah.
Fatal Attraction. So I would vote for Cher. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, Kevin. I think Glenn should win
Well,
for Dangerous
it's been
Liaison.
fun. I'll see you later.
Oh, but it's fun that these movies, like it's a timing
No, I
thing,
know.
right? Like Cher had already kind
Yeah.
of did, like she had already did Silkwood a few years ago, and it's all about momentum.
Yep.
And Glenn is also was momentum, but her momentum was maybe not as loud as Cher's because Cher has been in the culture far more than she has maybe at least a decade and a half before Glenn even started working,
Oh, for
right?
sure.
And
Yeah.
so there were all these things that sort of like tipped it to Cher. But I would, and I think that momentum that Glenn was building should have led to her winning with Dangerous Liaison. I don't know how she didn't win that, but that's not what we're talking about today.
To be continued very soon on this
Uh,
show.
yeah.
Yes, I completely agree with you. But yeah, I mean, I already talked about it in depth on my Best Actor series, so I don't want to repeat myself too much. But I think this is a year where any of those three would have been great winners: Cher, Glenn, or Holly Hunter. I think those are three of probably right at the top in terms of their careers, in terms of performances.
Yeah.
So it's a shame that they all had to come out in the
In
same
the
year.
same year. Yeah, one of them should have won over. Was Jodie Foster the year after for The Accused?
Yes.
They should have held one of them to the Jodie Foster accused. Yeah.
Yes. That year is a sore subject for me. Anyway, I think we should get to our final segment here where we will rate Glenn's performance on a very specific scale. So, thinking about her performance, where this sits in her career, would you say that her performance as Alex Forrest is such that she is ready for her close up? One of her best performances, perhaps even Oscar worthy. Is it low Glenergy, not one of your favorites, or close but no cigar, somewhere in the middle? I think
Uh,
I already know your
yeah.
answer.
I mean, ready for her close up, of course. Like this is the
Yes.
performance of her career, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. No question. She is not going to be ignored. She is ready for that close up.
Yeah.
You
She's
know,
all the
again,
things.
even if it wasn't an iconic performance just on a pop culture level, I just think the character work she's doing here is above and beyond what is expected of her. And yeah, did something very new, presented herself in a new way for the audience that was just super exciting. So I would be very surprised if by the end of this Glenn watch, if this isn't like top two or three
Yeah.
in the end. It'll
No.
just always be there for her. So
Absolutely. Yeah. And I love that you asked me to talk about this movie. It was just like it was my literally my top when you asked me for what movies. I think I put it as number one. I don't remember if but in my mind it was number one.
yeah, thank you so much for joining me. I always love talking movies with you. So I was so excited to have you on this episode, and I thought it went pretty well, if I do say so myself. So thank you so much, as always.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for having me. I always also love talking about you, about you. I also
Oh, you're
love
talking about
I
me?
talk about you too, but I love talking with you
Wow.
about movies. People, we're recording this on a Sunday. It's early. It's not early, but I anyway,
Anyway,
I'm loopy a little bit, but Kevin, thank you so much. This
that's
was
fine.
really wonderful, and I love talking with you
Yeah,
all the time. And I'm
of
honored that
course.
you chose me to talk to you about this iconic performance of your favorite actor. So
The pleasure was all mine. But where can people find more of you and your wonderful work on the internet?
So I'm still on Twitter, but I don't go there. So you can find me on Instagram for social media at Murtada_E. And come visit us in October at New Fest, where you will see some of the films that I'm working on programming right now. And in November, also in New York at Doc NYC. And you can read my film criticism at Variety.
Yes, go follow Murtada. He is an essential follow. And also you have your podcast with Izzy as well.
Yes, there is. We are taking a hiatus right now, but yes, the Izzy and Murtada Picture Show is a podcast where I talk with my friend Izzy about new released movies, which is why we're taking a hiatus in the summer, because none of these movies are what we care about, but we'll be back in the fall.
Yes, of course. All right. Well, thank you all so much for listening. You can find me at Kevin_Jacobsen on Twitter and Instagram, just Kevin Jacobsen on Blue Sky. You can also listen to my Oscar-themed podcast, And the Runner-Up Is, for coverage of every single Best Actress race, including, I highly recommend, the 2006 episode with Murtada. I'll just say that. Love our chat on Notes on a Scandal. One of my favorite films to discuss ever on that show. And the Runner-Up is on all platforms, and The World According to Glenn is on social at TheGlennPod. And rate, review, and follow on all podcast platforms. And with that, I will bid you all adieu.